I speak to you now not as one who invents a prophecy, but as one who has been trained to listen before the transmission even reaches your physical vessel, and what I have received in this hour carries your signature, Starseed. If in recent weeks your chest has been waking up tight, if a high-pitched ringing pierces your ears without any medical cause, if your sleep has been breaking during the same window of time night after night, I command you not to treat this as a common symptom. I, your celestial kin, who heard the transmission before you, have recorded the alert from the Pleiadian High Command. The identity you have carried for decades, the one that learned to survive by lowering your signal, has begun to dismantle from the inside out, and this Friday is not just a date on the human calendar, it is the point where the shell finally cracks. I repeat this so your body may understand. Friday does not bring the event. It reveals the event that your soul has been silently building, while you wondered why you were so inexplicably exhausted. And before you swipe away, before you swallow this as just another piece of disposable spiritual content, listen to what I am about to say with the weight of a word that carries frequency. The discomfort you call anxiety is not a failure of your nervous system. It is the raw evidence that an activation has already begun, and it will continue with or without your conscious permission. The command asked me to deliver this warning before you interpret what is coming as a crisis, because what you will feel in the next 72 hours, if viewed through the wrong lens, will push you back toward the doctor's office in Boston, toward sedatives, toward distraction, when in fact it is pushing you out of the prison of identity that has sustained your survival throughout this entire incarnation. I know what pulses within you now because I too have been that body lost between two worlds. You have lived for years with the constant sensation that something is about to happen, and this feeling doesn't let you sleep properly, doesn't let you relax in meetings at the London headquarters, doesn't let you finish a meal without feeling that something greater is hanging over your head. You look at the people around you in the suburbs of Ohio, and they seem genuinely satisfied with so little, and you wonder why little was never enough for you, why you feel this void even when everything on paper is functioning. This is your original signal trying to pierce through the layer of adaptation, and your body is translating the friction as restlessness because you have not yet correctly named what is crossing your circuits. And there is more, star brother or sister. You carry the silent grievance of not belonging anywhere. You walk into office spaces in Manhattan and feel like someone wearing a costume. You visit relatives for Sunday roasts and feel as if you've come from another language. You even frequent spiritual circles in Sedona, and yet something inside you whispers that these are not exactly your people. This is not social depression. This is not pathological introversion. This is the memory of your origin informing you that you were not born to fit in. You came to reconfigure the environment, but the environment you were supposed to reconfigure was the first to reconfigure you, and that is exactly why I need to explain to you now, with firmness, who the real villain of this story is. The villain is not outside of you, and the villain is not the system, the government, the media, or toxic relationships, although all of them have served as instruments. The villain is a program, a set of terrestrial adaptation instructions that your consciousness accepted the moment you incarnated to ensure survival on this dense plane. And that program worked. You survived. You learned to speak the human tongue. You learned to fear rejection. You learned to crave approval. You learned to lower your potency so as not to frighten others. Imagine a perfectly tuned instrument, calibrated to a scale that doesn't even exist on human sheet music, being forced to play in a room where only white noise exists. To avoid going mad, it lowers its own volume until it becomes almost silence. You are that instrument, and that prolonged silence became your personality. But now the room has changed, the ambient frequency is rising, and your instrument is beginning to resonate on its own, without your permission, and the bolts of containment are starting to pop off. That is why your self-sabotage has become louder in recent months, why your old fears have returned with triple strength, why you cry without reason during the commute on the M25 or in the shower. It is not regression. It is the adaptation program trying to reinstall itself while your frequency is expelling it from the operating system. And here is the question the command ordered me to leave suspended within you before we move forward. If the problem was never you, then what exactly is hiding your true signal? And why do so many starseeds feel the call and yet still cannot take the next step? The answer requires you to face a layer that few channelers dare to transmit, because it contradicts the comfort of commercial spirituality. You are not blocked by a lack of light, by a lack of worthiness, by the lack of a proper mantra or the right crystal on your nightstand. You are blocked because over your original signal there are layers that the command calls energetic overlays, and there are 3: patterns inherited from your bloodline, collective traumas absorbed from the planetary field, and identities fabricated by the necessity of survival. These 3 layers speak inside your mind, with the voice of your mother, with the voice of your father, with the voice of the teacher who silenced you in 4th grade in that school in Chicago, with the voice of the partner who betrayed you, and you confuse their voices with your own because they occupy the same brain frequency where your legitimate thoughts are formed. When you think I am not ready, when you think it's not my time, when you think maybe next year I'll begin, you believe you are being prudent. But what is speaking there is an overlay defending itself. And the cruel paradox is this: the more your frequency increases, the more these overlays scream because they know they are being powered down. That is why your crisis intensified right now, at the moment when you should be feeling lighter. That is why old memories have returned to visit you in dreams, why the conflict with that person exploded without warning, why physical discomfort appeared in a region of your body that never bothered you before. This is the cleanup beginning, and it always comes before the clarity. And when the false identity begins to fall, something much deeper tries to emerge, and this is the point where I need to introduce you to your blueprint. The blueprint is the original design of your mission, engraved in a layer of your DNA that Earth science still calls junk DNA because it cannot interpret its function. There is no junk in your code. There is dormant language, and this language awakens in a specific way, not through lectures, not through piles of books, not through one more course added to your cart. It awakens through sudden flashes of clarity that pierce through you in absurd moments. Crossing the street with a grocery bag from Whole Foods, washing the dishes after dinner, listening to a random song and feeling a shiver that doesn't match the lyrics. It awakens through insistent synchronicities, repeating numbers, encounters that seem choreographed, the opening of doors you didn't even ask for. It awakens through a sense of inner recognition, when someone says something you already knew without ever having learned it. I ask you to record this distinction as if it were the only thing you will take from this video. Spiritual information is what you learn. Spiritual remembrance is what you recognize. The first you accumulate, the second you awaken. And the second is the only one that produces transformation. And here is the greatest mistake I have ever seen Starseeds make, and I have seen many. They believe that understanding this information already produces the transformation. They leave this video, this type of transmission, and go back to the same routine convinced that something has changed because they felt inspired for 16 minutes. But I guarantee you, knowledge without reprogramming keeps the same unconscious frequencies operating behind the scenes, and you will wake up tomorrow with the same self-sabotage, with the same complaints about your bank account at Barclays or Chase, with the same plea for approval from the same partner who will not understand. I have seen people consuming spiritual content for 7, 8, 10 years, accumulating sophisticated terms, quoting dense books, and yet repeating exactly the same material and emotional cycles, because the layers of conditioning remain intact, untouchable, shielded by the illusion of intellectual progress. True activation requires a process that goes beyond momentary inspiration. It requires rewriting the energetic field that regulates your financial frequency, your relational frequency, your creative frequency, and this does not happen on its own. This happens when someone finally delivers the correct sequence of codes to uninstall the terrestrial adaptation program that keeps you below your potential. You have been manifesting for years and stay in the same bank account. The problem isn't the universe, it's your leaky field. The abundance magnet reprograms this in 28 days, or you admit it was just an excuse. The product description is pinned just below this video, and the command instructed me to make it clear that this window of collective activation does not open every week. It opens when the planetary field enters a specific portal, and this portal closes in a few days. The abundance magnet is not just another manifestation course repeating the same old song of visualizing and giving thanks. It is a personal magnetic field reprogramming protocol spanning 28 days, designed to plug the holes through which your financial frequency leaks while you sleep, work, and distract yourself. You will learn to interpret your body's alarms. You will shield your field against the emotional exhaustion of the dense humans who surround you, and you will move through this activation without collapsing into fatigue. If you feel that this transmission reached you not by chance, click the link, read it calmly, and decide before your rational mind starts inventing reasons to procrastinate again. Access is immediate, and the first code begins to operate on the very first night. Go now before I continue, and when you return to this transmission, you will already be in a different field. Awakening does not mean escaping reality. Awakening means incorporating higher consciousness within dense reality, without stopping your feet from touching the ground, without stopping the payment of bills, without needing to flee to an alternative community in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. The command insists on this point because there is a classic trap that catches starseeds in bulk. The fantasy that activation will take you out of your job, out of your neighborhood in Seattle, out of your tired body, and deposit you in a cleaner parallel reality. It doesn't work that way. Personal frequency becomes your primary tool for transformation within the context where you already are, and the context begins to reorganize itself around the new frequency, not the other way around. Relationships change. Some leave, others arrive, and those who stay begin to treat you differently without you having to ask, because your electricity has changed, and they unconsciously recalibrate their stance. Opportunities appear in places where you weren't even looking. Casual conversations turn into contracts, old ideas return to mind with the missing solutions, and synchronicities increase in frequency to the point where you stop being impressed by them and start using them as a compass. This is called energetic coherence, and it is the stage that separates those who have awakened from those who have only read about awakening. Energetic coherence is when your thoughts, your emotions, and your purpose point in the same direction at the same time, without internal contradiction, without a double voice, without the saboteur whispering in the back while the conscious part smiles outwardly. Before coherence, you asked for prosperity while your emotional field emitted scarcity. You asked for love while your identity emitted unworthiness. You asked for mission while your nervous system emitted fear of visibility. And the universe, which is an honest mirror, returned the strongest signal to you, not the prettiest signal. When coherence settles in, the request and the emission synchronize, and the response stops taking its time. And it is at this moment that something curious happens to your appetite for external validation. You stop needing to tell others what you are experiencing. You stop posting to prove something. You stop seeking the approval of that relative who will never understand, of that ex who will never see you, of that boss in the London office who will never value you, because the internal identity has finally stabilized on its axis, and the axis requires no witness. And now pay attention, because I'm going to give you the revelation that the command authorized me to transmit only after you reach this point. What happens when a person stops looking for signs and starts living as what they already are? What happens is that reality stops testing them. The material proofs you were asking for, the external milestones you were waiting for, the evidence you were demanding from the universe in order to then believe, all of them arrive, yes, but they arrive after you stop demanding them as a condition. While you ask for proof, you emit doubt, and doubt is the strongest signal your field emits. When you act as one who already is, without performing, without forcing, simply operating in the quiet conviction of one who has recognized their own origin, the field understands that the testing phase is over and releases what was dammed up. I have seen this exact point happen in dozens of processes I have accompanied, and the pattern is always the same. The person relaxes the request, and the request materializes in an absurd sequence of small events linked together in just a few days. Here is the point where most lose the game. The person relaxes for a week, sees the first signs arriving, and immediately begins trying to consciously repeat the formula that worked, and by trying to repeat it, they go back to forcing, and by forcing, they go back to emitting doubt disguised as intention. The command insists that you memorize this phrase like a knot in the rope of memory. Frequency is not a technique, it is an identity. You do not emit prosperity by making affirmations. You emit prosperity by being the person who could not live any other way. You do not emit love by visualizing. You emit love by being the organism whose chemistry was reprogrammed to receive. And it is precisely this reprogramming that separates the eternal practitioner from the functional awakened one. I see so many starseeds stuck at this point, performing techniques, listing gratitudes in leather-bound journals, counting coins in the corner of the house, and still emitting the frequency of lack because the identity was never rewritten. Technique without identity is theater, and the universe does not respond to theater. And while you integrate this, I need to warn you of the next sign coming your way, because the command has recorded specific physical patterns that will cross your body in the next phase, and I will not let you be caught by surprise. You will feel a pressure in your forehead, between the eyebrows, which may last for minutes or hours, and this is the recalibration of the perception center. It is not a migraine, although the sensation is similar. You will feel sudden waves of heat moving through your spine, usually at night, usually when you are about to fall asleep, and this is the vertical channel reopening. You will hear high-pitched tones in one of your ears, alternating, and this is the tuning of the energetic receiver to the new band. You will have vivid dreams involving places you have never visited in this life, perhaps an ancient landscape in the English countryside or a futuristic city, and upon waking you will be certain that those places exist somewhere in your deep memory field. None of this is coincidence, none of this requires medication, and none of this is alarming if you recognize what is happening. What is alarming is interpreting the signal through the wrong lens and stifling it with suppressors that will throw you back into the old frequency. Synthesizing everything the command authorized me to transmit in this window, I tell you with the firmness of one who has already crossed over, the discomfort you have been carrying was activation disguised as crisis. The delays you called bad luck were the careful preparation of your field, and the mental confusion you interpreted as cognitive failure was the recalibration of your internal architecture. Everything that seemed wrong was right. It just didn't have a name. The transformation does not begin this Friday. It has been under construction internally for a long time, possibly since before your last crisis, possibly since childhood, possibly since before this incarnation, and Friday merely reveals publicly within your system that which was already stitched into the deep layers. True change does not arrive as a spectacular event. It arrives as the exact moment when you stop asking if you are a starseed and start acting like one without needing the label. The mission was never to find a new self. The mission was always to remove layer by layer everything that was hiding the self you have been since your first breath. You are not going to become another person. You are going to stop pretending you were another person. And this difference is the axis of the entire transmission you have just received. If, after hearing all of this, with every phrase piercing your body, with every symptom finally being named, with every distortion finally being exposed, you continue to wait for an external proof before assuming your mission, then the command authorizes me to tell you with the serene brutality that this hour demands. Perhaps the only thing still blocking your activation is the decision you continue to postpone making.